this video, I'm going to cover everything that I bring for a backpack bear hunt. This stove is arguably the lightest one on the market. We're going to go through my 2024 bear hunting gear list. First up, let's run through my bow. This is the Matthews Lift, 29.5-inch draw. I'm shooting gold tip arrows. These are gold tip Pierce Platinums. Very straight arrow, they hit hard, full carbon. Pretty tough arrow too. Like, you can shoot these things in the dirt and hit a rock, and generally they're gonna keep their straightness. The broadhead I'm using, this is the Slick Trick Viper Trick. It's basically a 4-blade, but it's technically a 2-blade with some big old bleeders. These fly really good for me. They're really cheap. You can get like a 4-pack for 30 bucks. Compare it to a lot of the other like full stainless steel broadheads. I mean, they're like 30 bucks a pop. On the back here, I've got tack vanes, and then just a white cresting. Just makes it easier to see. And then on the very back here, I've got nocturnals. And when you shoot these things, especially in low light, it literally is like a laser beam. You can see exactly where you hit. It's really easy to find your arrow afterwards, and they've just got a little switch in the back that you just flip them on and off. Another thing on these broadheads, this specific model is not stainless steel, but even on the stainless steel ones, I will typically take a little bit of Vaseline and I'll coat it on the blade. And it'll just prevent it from oxidizing, prevent it from rusting. And especially if you're hunting in more coastal stuff or really wet environments, or even if it just rains a few times, often your broadheads will rust. So it's good to prevent that. Bow itself here, I've got, my sight is an Excel landslide. I've got it set up as a 3-pin slider. It's kind of cool. You have indicators for both your top pin and your bottom pin. You know, say I slide my sight down, say I'm shooting a target at 90 yards, my top pin right now would be at 74. So you always have a reference of multiple pins regardless of where you move it. This is a little custom jobby here. I've just found that not so much bear hunting, but mule deer hunting, sometimes elk hunting, I feel like the critters have seen my fletching, so I like to cover them up. It protects them a little bit too. And this is just the quiver from the Sitka bow sling, just slides right over the top. But then I always keep my one arrow instantly, easily accessible, so I just one-handed pop it out, go ahead and knock it. And here on the bottom, I've got, these are Matthews limb legs, and they just allow you to set your bow down, prop it up. I can shoot out to 100 yards and I literally can't tell a difference on my impacts. And maybe a professional archer would be able to, but I can't tell. It's a handy little thing to leave on there. It does add a little bit of weight, so we'll see if I actually pack this or not. Most of the time with bear hunting, I'm probably gonna have my bow strapped to my backpack anyway, and then kind of when it's go time, or when we've spotted a bear and we're doing spot and stalk, that's when I'll pull it off. The rest I'm using, this is Matthews Ultra Rest. It is just a fall away, drop away rest, super easy to adjust and fine tune. All right, next up, we're gonna talk about my release aid. Probably my first 10 years of bow hunting, I shot with an index finger release, you know, just the standard pull the trigger, and I got terrible target panic. It was so bad that at any range, whether it was 20 yards or 80 yards, I would hold a foot above the target. I would keep my finger behind the release, and I would, with my bow arm, I would drop my bow, and in simultaneous motion, I would bring my finger around and slap the trigger. And I actually got pretty good at it. Every time I shot my bow, it was stressful, my heart was pounding, and like when you just, especially when you'd shoot with buddies, it was just, like I wanted to give it up. I had a friend recommend the Sweet Spot Ultra 3, which is a hinge release with a safety. Yeah, I switched to that, and I shot 3 animals, every single shot. They weren't all perfect, but I executed the shot perfectly. Like, put my pin on, took the safety off, and I would just pull, move the elbow back, and she fired. The only problem with that, and this is where like a thumb button is more beneficial, is a thumb button you can just leave on your D-loop. So I was like, man, if I could just have a hinge that you could just leave attached, that would be ideal. And then this past winter, Evolution Outdoors came out with this release right here. This is called the Ibex, and it's a hinge that attaches to your D-loop, and it just dangles there. It's also got a clicker in it, so when you come to full draw and you start to come back, it'll actually make a little click. The click isn't audible, so you're not gonna worry about spooking an animal potentially, but you'll feel it kind of click, and that's when it's like about to fire. The yellow duct tape on here is super custom. I just put it on so that it's super high vis. In case I drop my release, I can easily find it. All right, next we're gonna run through my vinyl harness. So this is Sitka's Mountain Optics harness, and Vinyls I'm running, these are Swarovski's 12x42 NL Pures. Probably the best vinyl on the market, period. Yeah, I can't say enough about investing in high quality glass. It'll change your life and you'll spot a lot more critters. Rangefinder I'm using, this is Leupold's RX 1400i with TBR/W. You can also put in your bow specs into this rangefinder, which is kind of cool. And say you're shooting through brush, or say there's a limb at like 20 yards, and you're like, ooh, is my bow gonna like hit that limb or not? When you go ahead and range, this will actually give you a line, and that will be the high point of your arrow's flight. On the side here, this is obviously where I keep my release. Did a little custom work here. So with a thumb release or a hinge, anything that's got a big like thumb peg on it, this thing can fall out, and I've lost a few hinges in the woods in my years of hunting. So what I did is I just took a little piece of bungee and I just put some holes in the side here and ran the bungee through, and so I can pull it up and over onto that thumb peg, and it keeps it pushed down, so I really never have to worry about losing my release. But when I'm doing bow hunts, I do always bring 2 releases with me. One on me, and then one usually like buried in my emergency kit just as a backup. Then we go to this side, the bino harness. There's a big pocket here. Pretty much just keeps sunglasses, a few snacks, and then I've got my phone scope mount right here. And this allows me to attach my phone to this, and then right here I can attach this to either my spotting scope or my binos. And it just allows me to film critters through my optics. Then on this side here, handy dandy lighter. Got some zinc sunscreen, and then some flossing jigs, you know, personal hygiene. Gotta think about it. Then on the back here, there is one big sleeve back here. That's where I keep my cell phone. And there's a zippered pocket as well. That is where I keep my hunting tags. One more thing on the rangefinder, you'll notice I've got it on this really, really short tether. That's because when you're bow hunting, when you're in tight on animals, like you want to range and you want to like minimal movement. And often I'll range, and with the short tether, I can literally just let go, and then I can go ahead and draw. When you've got a long tether or no tether, you pretty much always have to put it back. And just that extra movement, that extra, you know, second that it takes to do that might be the difference between you getting a bear or not getting a bear. So really short tether. Now let's talk about the clothing that I'm wearing. This piece right here, this is the ambient jacket from Sitka. It's just a lightweight, super breathable hoodie. Got a really soft face fabric, so you can bow hunt in it. This hoodie is an insulation layer, but it's called active insulation, meaning that you can hike hard in it, you can sweat hard in it, it's gonna breathe, but it's also gonna trap heat when you're not moving. So pretty slick piece. Then I've got the core lightweight hoodie as my base layer. Just super lightweight shirt, built-in hood. It's got a built-in face mask too. I honestly never really use the face mask. I find with archery anyway, if you come to full draw and you suddenly have a face mask on, it's gonna mess with your anchor just a little bit. It's gonna like kick you off. I never practice with a face mask. Maybe I should, but it's just kind of an extra feature that I don't really use. So it's a sweet feature if you're like into fully being a ninja. And if you're in a state that requires hunter orange, I wear the Sitka Jetstream vest. It's a lot nicer than most vests or even the mesh ones out there, because the beauty of this thing is it's actually part of your layering system. This Jetstream piece, it's got windstopper in it, so it's gonna cut the wind. It's also got a light DWR treatment, so it's gonna shed water. Again, versus just like, you know, one of those little thin little paper bag type orange vests. This is like, it doesn't really do anything other than provide high vis. So now let's talk about my pants. These pants are the Sitka's Equinox Guard pants. They are wicked quiet, have to be the quietest pants that Sitka makes. They're also tick proof. So they come from the factory treated with permethrin. They have a built-in gaiter here. So there's this piece of fabric here, you tuck it into your socks. And if a tick comes up your boot, it can't go up your legs and go suck on your, it'll get caught up right here. Pants also have a vent back here. And this vent has got a really tight knit weave fabric here. Same deal, ticks can't get through that. You have some front pockets here, just some little side pockets against your thighs. And I keep mostly just my gloves in here. These are Sitka's Equinox Guard gloves. They have a little bit thicker fabric in them, so they're gonna be mosquito proof. Thumb and the index finger is open, so it works really well with either a thumb button or a hinge release. And then my boots, these are La Sportiva A Equilibriums. Super comfy, 3/4 shank boot. I've gone through about 4 pairs of these. These are my go-tos. All right, now everything I keep in my backpack. So this is Mystery Ranch, their new Metcalf. This is the Metcalf 75. It comes in 3 different sizes. You can get a 50 liter, 75 liter, or 100 liter. 75 is like a great kind of all-purpose, you know, you can do day hunts in this, you can do up to like 5 or 6 days. If I'm doing any 10-day backpack hunts, definitely bring the Metcalf 100. So this bag, it's pretty simple. You've got one big main compartment, you've got a side zip, and then you've got this big lid pockets. So with this pack, you kind of always want to keep your most accessible things either in the top pockets here or close to this side zipper. The way that I typically pack my packs is in the bottom half, I usually put the lighter stuff and things that I'm not gonna need to access until evening. So on backpack hunts, I have my tent, my sleeping bag, some puffy layers that I know I'm not gonna access till evening, keep those down here. Also my like freeze drieds, my stove kit. And then as I move up, I've got rain gear right along the side here so that I can easily access it via the side pocket. Also got my spotting scope here on the side. Yeah, typically up towards the top, I usually put a little bit more heavy things. With big heavy loads, you want to keep them up a little bit higher as well as closer to your back. It's just going to ride better. On the side of this pack, there's a nice water bottle holder here, a couple straps coming across. I always keep my trekking pole here if I don't have it in my hand. I also put my tripod here. This is the Peak 44 Alpine tripod, standing height tripod. So you can stand while glassing, you don't have to sit. It's also got a leveling center column, which just makes glassing that much easier. And then my trekking pole, this is the Peaks Backcountry Elite, AKA Sissy Sick. So on this side, this is something I've been playing with a little bit this year. This is the Hardside Hydration system. Basically allows you to attach a hose to your Nalgene so you can drink out of it, similar to like if you had a Camelback or like a hydration reservoir. I've used this system for about a month now and it's performed pretty well. My only complaint is when you have your pack, say you have your pack laying down, if your bottle's full, there's a little one-way valve in here. It's not really one way. There is a little bit of water that'll leak out on it, and if you're like conserving water, you know, odds are decent you're gonna dump some water out of the system. As far as ease of drinking and always taking a sip of water every 15-20 minutes, like this is a pretty slick system. All right, next on the waist belts here, on this side, there's just a pocket that attaches here. These are Wiggy Waders. They are just a lightweight, I think they're made out of nylon, but they're a wader that you just slip over whatever boot or shoe you're wearing and you can run across the creeks and stay totally dry. I think in total these weigh 15 ounces. They're pretty light, but they are not puncture resistant, they're not puncture proof, they're not burly like a Sims fishing weight or anything. So they do get holes in them, and you know, every year or so I'll go through with some seam sealer and I'll just find all the holes and patch them up. But man, it saves so much time, and for only 15 ounces, like you get to a creek, you cross, you move on. Or if you just have one pair and you have 2 people, first guy crosses, and when you get to the other side, you take them off. I usually throw a rock in them and I'll roll them up tight, and I'll just chuck them across the river, and the other person can cross. So good time saving tool there. Go to the other side of the pack, again on the waist belt here. I've got another pocket here, and I keep micro spikes in this pocket, and I feel like micro spikes might be the most underutilized piece of gear for hunters, just because when you're going up really steep side hilly stuff, or if you're in the country with a lot of logs, or say it's snowed an inch, or just some wet grass, if you're slipping and sliding constantly, you know, A, you're not looking ahead, B, it's just going to be harder to move through that environment. And so I think these in total weigh about a pound, but it prevents you from struggling and allows you just to get into places easier. Totally worth bringing. I have typically purchased Catula micro spikes in the past. I think they're like 80, 100 bucks, and I decided to try some cheap crappy ones off Amazon. These are 20 bucks, and I've used them for about a month this year and they haven't broke yet. So save yourself some cash and maybe search some on Amazon. And one more pocket on the side here, this is where I keep my headlamp. I like to always have my headlamp accessible. I keep it in the same spot every time so I never forget it. It's also nice because when you're hiking out and it's dark and you're like, oh, I gotta reach in my pack to pull my headlamp off. I hate pulling my pack off. I just love to have it right in my side. This is the Peaks Backcountry Duo. It's got both red and white mode, 1000 lumens on the bright end. One feature I love about it is it's got a fully like 180-degree rotating housing. So if you put your headlamp on upside down, you can still point it down. You can point it to where you need it to go. Right side up or upside down still works perfect. And the final thing on the outside of the pack is my butt pad. This is for mainly glassing, or if you forget your sleeping pad, provides a little extra cushion. This is just a piece of a Thermarest Z-Lite pad, and I use 4 sections for my big butt. With bear hunting especially, it's a lot of just spot and stalk. You're just sitting on a hillside glassing for hours and hours and hours waiting for these things to move, so it's nice to stay comfortable. So now let's look at the top pockets, and again, you want to keep things that you're going to be accessing throughout the day, like easily accessible, and that's what I put in these guys. Rain gloves. These are Sika's Stormfront gloves. Keep my water filter in here. This is Katadine's BeFree filter. This thing's kind of crazy. You literally just scoop water into it, dirty water. You pop open this cap, and you can just drink straight out of this. You can also squeeze it into, you know, a platypus or an Nalgene if you want. Very high flow rates. This thing weighs hardly anything. Bring it everywhere with me. Toilet paper. This is one of my most essential items, and I usually keep some here, and I also usually keep some in my pants pocket, which I didn't talk about earlier. Next up, this is a new for this year. This is another rangefinder. This is Leupold's new, it's an RX 5000 rangefinder. You can sync this to OnX on your phone, and I can range something at like a mile away, and it will literally drop a pin directly on OnX where that, you know, animal is. So if I see a bear, say 1,000 yards away, I can ping it. It will then drop a pin directly on OnX, so I will know exactly where that bear is if I want to go do a stalk on it. And especially with bow hunting, I mean, you got to get within 50 yards. It might take you an hour to get over to wherever the bear's at. So having a tool that literally is like, hey, that bear was right there, is pretty insane. I don't know what this weighs. It's probably 10 or 12 ounces. It's a heftier rangefinder, but the value that it provides is kind of unreal. All right, then this other top pocket, that's where I keep most of my snacks. First snack, we've got a mini RX bar. The list of ingredients right there is all that's in this thing. Next, we've got some Voke tabs. That's V-O-K-E. These are basically just little caffeine tablets, and I've found a little caffeine boost sometimes when you get a little sleepy, a little tired, is all I need to keep me going for a few hours. 77 milligrams of caffeine per tablet. Usually take 1 a day in addition to my coffee. Next up are meat sticks. These two are Maui Nui venison sticks. They are wild harvested off of Hawaii. And then this one's from Costco. This is a Chomps. Trying to eat as much proteins and non-added sugar things as I can out there. Next, I've got some snack sticks that I made with my buddy Shane. These are from a deer and an elk that my wife and I shot last year, and yeah, just a little protein boost. Next up, moon cheese. This is freeze-dried cheese. This is pepper jack flavored. Yeah, so good. That's it bar. This is the apple and mango flavored, and that's literally all that's in this. There's bits of apple and bits of mango. It's basically just condensed fruit. My one guilty pleasure food item. These are shot blocks. These are basically these little sugar wads with a little caffeine in them. When you get tired, when you bonk, when you have blood sugar low, or you're so tired you don't feel like you can walk anymore, eat 2 of these, drink some water, and in 5 minutes you completely forgot you were even tired. And then finally, the most boring piece of food, but very good for you. This is my bag of trail mix. This is all custom trail mix. So I've got pecans, I've got almonds, I've got cinnamon covered macadamia nuts. Pumpkin seeds. I did throw a little bit of chocolate in there just to make it a little better, so that's my other guilty pleasure. Keep a little lens wipe up here for optics, my sunglasses, as well as camera gear. I bring a battery brick, and this is a Nitecore battery brick. There's a bunch of research online where people test different sizes of battery bricks and see how efficient they are. So this Nitecore one, it's an energy brick NB 20,000. So it's a 20,000 MHA, like that's the output. And they found that for the weight, this one is the most efficient battery brick out there. So I have a USB-C cable, as well as a lightning cable to charge my phone. USB-C, I can typically charge most of my cameras with this. So it's good to have a little extra power with you. All right, now we'll jump into the main compartment of the pack. So, but before I do that, again, there is a side access zipper on here. On the 75 liter, there's one side access zipper, and then on the 100 liter, there is a side access on both sides. And those things that I want to be able to access quickly and easy, got my spotting scope on the side, as well as my rain gear. We'll access those from the inside just to show you. Pack has got a big roll top, here, so you can really like stuff this thing. And then if it's not fully stuffed, you can just roll it tight. And we will start just pulling stuff out. So rain pants I am rocking. These are Sika's Dew Point rain pants. They're a lightweight but actually stretchy fabric, so they have a lot more durability than you'd think, and they don't weigh much. Full side length zippers, so very easy to get on and off. So my rain jacket. This is Sika's Stormfront jacket. I prefer it over the Dew Point for a couple reasons. A, it's longer in the back, so when I sit down with the Dew Point jacket, because it's a fairly tight and form-fitting piece, it doesn't have a bunch of extra length. So when I sit down, I'm glassing and it's dumping rain. Sometimes the rain will go down my back and right into my butt crack. No bueno. So with this jacket, it drapes over a little bit longer. It's also got a bunch of different pocket feature sets. It does way more than the Dew Point rain jacket. The extra features and the added length make it more usable for me. Then we've got my spotting scope. Again, I would typically access this from the side if I needed it. I've got it in a marsupial case. The spotter I'm running, this is Swarovski's 65mm STX spotter. Again, the value of high quality glass is everything. When you're looking long distances or trying to see how big something is, it's good to have a nice spotter. In this marsupial case, it does add a little bit of weight, but it's really nice protection and insurance in case you drop your spotter. The other nice thing I did add, so it comes with this little carrying strap right here. It's also got molly webbing all over it, so you can attach it to your backpack if you want. I just took some paracord and ran it through. So say I need to like run over the hill over there really quick, instead of grabbing my physical spotter, I can just throw it back in its case, throw this strap over my shoulder and run with it. So just a little customization there. So as we talked about earlier, I typically keep the heavier, more bulky items up top. So one of those things, although it really doesn't weigh much, is my cook stove. This is the Soto Windburner, and I've got it in a Totes 75mm titanium pot. This system's nice because you can fit both the stove and your fuel canister in here. So we'll take a look at the stove. So this stove is arguably the lightest one on the market. It weighs, I think, 2.7 ounces. With this stove, you do have to attach these little wings, but it's very easy. Another nice feature is that it comes with a little igniter on here. So when you open this guy up and you've got the fuel canister attached and then the gas starts dripping, you just click this and it'll spark it, and that's how you light it. Versus, all the other ones that don't have this feature, you have to light it with a lighter. My previous setup was the MSR Pocket Rocket 2. I think in total that thing was like 11 ounces, and this thing is just over 5 ounces. So, saving 5 or 6 ounces roughly. Ounces matter. Next up, dinner. This is Gastronome freeze-dried foods. These are made and locally sourced out of Bozeman, Montana from our friend Shannon. 815 calories in this thing. This is beef shepherd's pie. Really, really good. Next up is my puffy jacket. This is Sika's Kelvin Aerolite jacket, and it's got a really high heat to weight ratio. Also pretty light. I always carry a 1.5 liter Nalgene on the side of my pack, but I want to have the ability to pack a lot of extra water if I need to. So I always bring this platypus. This is a 2 liter, just a soft bladder. And the beauty of these things is when you don't have water in them, it rolls into almost nothing. It doesn't take up space in your pack. If I were just packing a bunch of Nalgenes, Nalgenes, whether you have water in them or not, they're all the same size. So extra water goes in this guy. If we are in grizzly bear country, every night I will hang our food in just one of our stuff sacks. So this is about 50 feet of paracord with a carabiner on the end. I'll just lash the carabiner through the stuff sack, hoist it up in a tree. Try to get it 20 feet up. Honestly, you just gotta do the best you can. Next up, we're gonna talk about my sleeping system. So in this guy, I've got a quilt. And the quilt is basically a sleeping bag that you just lay over you. It's in the shape of a blanket, but it looks like a sleeping bag. So let's take a look at this thing. All right, so this is a quilt. It's literally just a big blanket. It looks like a sleeping bag. And the concept is you're gonna sleep directly on your sleeping pad, and then you're gonna drape this over you. The value of a quilt versus a sleeping bag is they're gonna be a little bit less weight. Typically, you're like, well, I'm gonna be cold in these, and when you're sleeping on a sleeping pad, all that down that you have, you know, against your back or your butt or bottom of your legs, when it gets compressed against the sleeping pad, it loses all of its insulation value. So the only thing that's insulating is your sleeping pad. So the benefit of Quilt is you're gonna save some ounces, you're going to be less claustrophobic than you would with a sleeping bag, and you'll be able to manage heat a little bit easier. You know, if you get hot, you literally just pull this thing and just like vent out a little bit. Most quilts do come with some sort of drawstring at the bottom, as well as some little clips to kind of make a foot box, so you can kind of put your feet in, and it, you know, your feet won't get cold or like be sticking out. So this guy, this is a Zen Bivy. This is a 25-degree quilt, and it does have a little drawstring at the bottom to do that. So progression of most mountain hunting or backpacking and everything is just like cutting weight and getting rid of things that aren't quite necessary. And in the sleeping bag world, you know, anything that's against your back when you're sleeping on a pad, like you're compressing that and it's not doing any insulation value. So with a quilt, you're basically just cutting out that piece of fabric and just laying this on top of you. And that brings me to my sleeping pad. I've had this guy a long time, but this is the Thermarest NeoAir Xtherm. It has got a really high R value, which is like the heat retention value. R value on this one is 7.3, basically making it an all-season pad. And you can take this in the winter, or you can take this in the summer, whatever. It's gonna insulate you from the cold of the ground. And when you pair it with something like a quilt, it's gonna be a pretty ideal setup. This pad weighs exactly 1 pound, so 16 ounces. Pretty burly fabric, both on the bottom and the top, so it's gonna be pretty puncture resistant. This one specific pad, I bet I have 300 nights in it. It does have a few little punctures in it that I fixed. One thing I did on this sleeping pad, and this is kind of a problem with all sleeping pads, is, it's a little hard to tell here, but there is strands of glue like all over this thing. And what it does is it just creates a bit of a grip on here. Heaven forbid you have to sleep on a slight angle. With this glue on here, it'll actually help you kind of stick to the pad and it'll prevent you from sliding around as much. There is one item that I have found over the years of camping in the woods that has increased my sleep quality tremendously. It's totally worth the extra 6 ounces. That is a pillow. Ugh. This is a Thermarest pillow. It's got memory foam in it. It does roll up fairly small, but man, just having something to rest your head against or like kind of put in that crease of your neck is huge. Otherwise, I end up with a kink in my neck. It might be super cold, and typically I would maybe like roll up a puffy layer and use that as my pillow. But when it's super cold, you're like, I want to wear that thing. I don't want to just like cannibalize it into my pillow. So I always bring a pillow. Next up, these are tent booties. Pretty sure that's what they're called. Western mountaineering tent booties. When you get to camp, you know, you kick your boots off, throw these guys on. They are down-filled to there, and then up here, this is basically windstopper fabric. And so they're not waterproof, but you can run around in camp, the ground can be wet, your feet aren't gonna get wet, and it's just like, keep your feet warm. I take these on pretty much every hunt, either as a camp shoe or like if you're in the middle of winter, like obviously you wanna keep your feet warm at night. Next up is my tent. This is the Peaks Solitude 4 teepee. This is a new one they're playing with. I won't show you all the internal thingies of it, but super light teepee, pretty easy to set up. It is compatible with stove. I pretty much don't use stoves on bear hunts just because it's nicer out. You don't really need to. If you know you're going in, you've got some specific dates you're gonna go bear hunting and you know the weather's gonna be gnar, throw a little stove in these guys. They're pretty sick. Next up, I've got a little tarp here. This is a 8x10 Dyneema tarp. It's a very expensive piece of fabric, but I use a tarp for two things. First off, if you do harvest an animal, it's really nice to lay a tarp down and then put all the meat onto that tarp. It just like, it keeps all the grass and debris and stuff off your meat. Secondly, when it's dumping rain, it's so nice just to pitch a tarp up really, really quick. Just sit there underneath a rainstorm, you can keep glassing, looking for bears, and it's way more comfortable than just sitting there in your rain gear getting pounded by wind and rain. Next up, got some game bags. I prefer a really light, breathable game bag with some straps on it that you could hang it up in a tree. These are from Caribou Gear as well as Pristine Ventures. And for bear hunts, I typically bring like 3 or 4 medium to small bags. And packing the hide out, I'll literally just put the hide with the skull and claws and stuff still attached. I'll just put that between the bag and the frame of this mystery ranch. And the last piece of gear on the inside here is my emergency kit. And we'll just run through just a couple key features in here. Got my knife, obviously. This is from Montana Knife Company. MKC, they're based in Frenchtown, Montana, and make pretty awesome stuff. Got my Zoleo. This is a satellite texting device that I can text anyone from anywhere in the world as long as I've got satellite connection. It syncs to your phone. It's got an SOS feature. It's got a check-in feature. The value of this over the Garmin InReach is this is a little bit cheaper, and when you get back into normal service, like normal LTE service, you can continue texting just directly from your phone versus a Garmin. Come back into service and you start texting people just from your phone again. Like, you have to start a whole new text thread with them. So it's kind of a pain. I've got a rapid tourniquet in case somebody shanks himself in the leg. Some extra TP, fire starter. These are from Blackbeard. The last piece of gear, this is my backup emergency headlamp. This is a Petzl E Plus Light. Thing weighs, I think, like 2.5 ounces. Fortunately, I haven't had to use this myself. I've had a few buddies that I've gone on trips with where they've forgot their headlamps, and so that's how this guy gets used most often. But yeah, weighs hardly nothing, goes with me everywhere. My last piece of gear that I always bring, because it's my job, also it's my passion, is my camera. So running the Sony a7R5, and typically I'll bring, if I'm just like trying to keep things light and simple, bring a 35mm prime lens. Usually bring a little ND filter on there if I'm doing some filming, a couple batteries, keep it simple. So that is a full run through of my 2024 bear hunting gear list. Now we're gonna go out and see if we can't find ourselves a bear to make him into a movie star. So TBD, we'll see.